Hey, what's going on there, my fellow crazy aviators? Welcome back. And if this is your first time here on the channel, well, then you've come to the right place. If you're a little insane behind the stick and you don't need a runway or any sort of paved area to actually land your plane on, this one's going to be a little different though. This time, figured, why not? Why not land a business jet on a paved runway? And yeah, I'm going to show you guys exactly how I achieved a 1.6 million point landing on the Aspen Landing Challenge. Alright, so here we go. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys the landing itself, and then we'll take it to the cockpit and break it down. Before we go any further, make sure you click that like and subscribe. That way you get all the information on how to hit these landings perfectly. So to start off, we got to go through the basics. Now the breakdown of the runway itself. Of course you have the runway numbers and all that, but that's not really important for what we're going for here, especially if you already know the heading of the runway you're going for. Then on a visual approach, unless you have multiple parallel runways, like that doesn't really apply, especially for this challenge. So we're going to keep the talk specific to this challenge and not more of the general aviation aspect. So with this, my top three things that I'm looking at when I'm coming in on approach is going to be the runway threshold number 1, and then the aiming point bars and the touchdown zone marks. So whenever I'm coming in, yeah, typically the aiming point bars by name is going to be what you want to go for. But myself, especially when accounting for the flare, I am looking at the runway threshold right on approach. I'll adjust my throttle, keep my attitude at a stable position, give or take. Sometimes I have to adjust it if I'm coming in a little too fast or a little too slow. But for the most part, I am looking directly at the runway threshold, aiming for that, so that when I come up to about that 10 to 30 feet off the runway, I am flaring and it'll carry me over right to that spot on the runway aim point. Okay, starting out, thanks to JD for creating this quick guide for the working Title CJ4 mod. I am using it for this approach, and I always use it while flying the CJ4 because it's an excellent upgrade to the FedEx system and the fly-by-wire and all that. The only section we're going to be concerned with for this is going to be the approach and landing section, specifically the 5 nautical miles out with the throttle, roughly between 50 to 65%. I kept it around 51%, mainly because there is no weight on the aircraft but the 2 pilots for this landing challenge. So you're going in pretty freaking light. My speed was kept around 110 to 115. I had to adjust it for the crosswind. Just a slight crosswind. We'll see it a little bit later on in the video whenever we show you the actual approach. And the glide slope, I will keep it around 3 degrees, just a standard approach. And just as a reminder, like when we're talking about throttle percentage, we're going to be looking at the N1, which will be the fan speed, because you have your separate for dual spool engine, which is on the CJ4. It'll be your N2 is your core speed, and then your N1 is your fan speed. Of course, gearbox is connected to the core for startup procedures, but yeah, we're only looking at the N1 for this approach. Alright, so this is the initial loading screen that Microsoft gives us from the get-go. As you can tell on the right, we have a 15-degree headwind, or crosswind, about 13 knots. Coming in, it starts out at 160 knots, and then you're going to drop your speed in this S pattern to slow down to 130 knots on approach. I kept it a little lower than that, mainly because I like to have my speed pretty much locked in on final. So when I'm coming in, all I have to focus on really is just lining up with the runway and then focusing on hitting that threshold marks before hitting the flare, and then just slightly touching down like butter. I don't know what you're waiting for, much crazies. Click that like and subscribe button. Let's go land on some mountains. So here we go, starting out on our approach. You got your two main flight displays right there. As you can see on the right display, right there at the top left, you have your N1 percentage. That is what we were talking about earlier. We will have that between 50 to 65%. I had that roughly at 51% on final approach. As you can see right here though, coming in, I have it reduced down to almost idle. Idle for this aircraft is roughly around 25% N1. Right now it is almost idle, just to slow down so we can hit that target speed of around 110 to 115 knots on final. Going up on that right hand turn, I'm going to go ahead and drop the flaps down to the 30 degrees. I kept them in the 15 degrees for the first portion of the initial approach, but for final we'll have it at that 30 degrees. That'll help us slow down to that target of 110 knots. And seconds before touchdown here, you can see coming in, I am aiming directly for those threshold marks, directly below the runway numbers. Right before it crosses the cover of the panel there, right where the leather is, you can see that I just start to flare, bring up the nose right back up to the 3 degrees pitch to get that little bit of lift to hit that buttered landing. Immediately after touchdown, pop the spoilers, of course, hit the brakes, make sure you do apply back pressure to hold the nose up just slightly so you don't slam it down. The CJ4 does not have thrust reversers, so it does rely solely on its hefty braking system to slow this bird down. And there you have it, 1.6 million, almost 1.7. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Do like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.